On today's video, we're going to talk about the magical melodic potential hidden inside a single note. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Just the other day I was cruising around listening to some tunes and Go With The Flow by Queens of the Stone Age came on. The tune's based on a really simple chord progression that goes C, A minor, and E. Nothing fancy at all, but there's one key ingredient that ties the entire thing together and really elevates it. It's this really simple single note piano part that goes behind the main riff. Check it out. Nothing at all complex, but it takes that simple chord progression and just makes it sound so much cooler by having that one single note that runs through the entire thing. But what is it that gives that single note that awesome melodic power, and how can we use that in our own writing? Well, the answers are actually pretty interesting and simple, and tons of musicians use this trick all the time. It's called a common tone, or sometimes a shared tone. And in this video, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of examples of where you've heard it and when it's worked. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Sign up today for all kinds of bonus goodies, backing tracks, extra videos, downloadable tabs, all kinds of good stuff. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my Ernie Ball Luke III right here, which I just love. And I'm playing that into the Synergy Morgan AC module. Now for the dirtier tones I'm going to use in this video, I'm going to be boosting that out front with the exotic BB preamp, which is like one of my favorite pedals ever. And I'm running that setup into the Universal Audio aux. In a nutshell, a common tone is nothing more than one note that every chord in a progression shares. That can be pretty easy to figure that out, sometimes even just based on chord shapes and stuff, but if you really want to learn what's going on with this, you got to learn a little bit about chord triads, which is really kind of like looking at the molecular structure or DNA composition of a chord. It's nothing really all that hard to learn. You just got to know the simple formulas for how to make major and minor triads. These triads are based around specific combinations of intervals. And in the case of a major chord, like our C major and E major chord that gets used in here, it's built around this formula that goes like this. Root, third, fifth. Now that root, third, fifth thing, that's based around the major scale. If you want to learn more about that, check out my This Is Why You Suck, You Don't Know the Major Scale video. It's going to have tons of information in there for you. But that formula right there is how you build any major chord. So for example, with the E major triad that's used later on, we just start on E and play that formula. Root, third, fifth. Now for the minor chord in there, it's a little variation on that formula. It goes root, flat third, fifth. So in other words, instead of having that third where you normally had it, it's just lowered a half step. That's the recipe for how to make a minor chord. Now if we look at the C major triad, we find the notes C, E, and G. So let's find our A minor triad. Root, flat third, fifth. That gives us A, C, and E. And if we look at the E major triad, that's going to give us E, G sharp, and B. C, E, G, A, C, E, E, G sharp, B. Now, the astute viewer might notice that there is one note that all those chords have in common, and it's that E note, right? For the C major chord, it was the root third. For our A minor chord, it was the root flat third fifth. And for the E major, it was the root. So that one note is shared between all of those chords. It really ties them together, much like the Big Lebowski's rug in his living room, right? The cool thing that happens is as those chords go by with that just repetitive E note underneath them, our ears perceive that E as meaning something different to every chord. Over the C, we hear it as the third, which sounds very melodious and kind of happy sounding. Over the A minor, we hear it as a fifth, which sounds very strong. And over the E, we hear it as the root, which sounds very, I don't know, very grounded, I guess, in a way. So third, fifth, root. And again, the reason that one note works really well with all those chords is because it's a part of all of those chords. Kind of like taking a shortcut through all three chords, so to speak. A lot of guitar players have accidentally stumbled across this with like maybe a repeating lick or a repeating melody that just sounds cool against all the chords in progression. If that's ever happened with you, you've probably been playing with common tones or shared tones. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Let me give you guys a more rockin' example of common tones and how they work through chord progressions. Now, anybody that's watched my channel for a while knows that one of my favorite guitar players of the 80s is Vito Bratta from White Lion. And by the way, if you're a Vito fan, search my channel. I've got a ton of Vito lessons. I've got lessons on how to play the solos from Wait, Little Fighter, Tell Me, When the Children Cry, a bunch of stuff. He's really an amazing guitar player. That guy just had a way of doing, I think, a smarter version of what a lot of the other 80s shredder guys were doing. So like, whereas a lot of other dudes during this era were playing riffs where they'd have that, you know, chugging a kind of root note through a bunch of chords. You know, that kind of thing. Vito would look at outlining an entire chord progression that all featured A as a note in every one of those chords. Again, a common tone. Take a look at those chords that he's implying in those riffs from the song Wait. Awesome riff, I love that thing. And the chords that it's implying are A major, A7, D major, D minor. Really cool set of chords. Now, if you look at all those chord triads, A major, we got A, C sharp, E. A7 adds in a G note, so you have A, C sharp, E, G. The D chord that he goes to is D, F sharp, A. And then the D minor is D, F, A. So again, in all those chords, we have an A of some kind. There it is. It's root to the A and A7. It's fifth to the D and D minor. It's a shared tone among all those chords. And when he's playing those little chord dyads on the G and D strings and the B a little bit too, he can keep that A ringing through all of those because it's a note that all of those chords share. Seriously, it just does not get any cooler than Vito soloing. Another example of where you've definitely heard a common tone being sung through an entire chord progression is during the chorus of Lovely Day by Bill Withers, where he sings like the longest note that you've ever heard in your life. Now that progression right there features one note that he sings over all those chords. In that example, the E note that he's singing corresponds to the root of the E major, the flat third of the C sharp minor, the fifth of the A, and then he even jumps out of key right here and sings the third of this C, and the, what would that be, the 11th of this B11 chord that's at the end of it right there. Really cool stuff. And again, just cutting a straight path through a jungle of chords. That's the magic of common tones. Guitar players have been using shared tones for a really long time through the use of open strings. It's really easy just to take a set of chords that has the same, ringing open string in all of them to get that kind of droning effect that you get when you find a good shared tone in between a bunch of chords. A perfect example of this is the song Starship Trooper by the band Yes. Steve Howe is an amazing guitar player. He's so creative. I think he's very, very underrated. And at the end of that song is this long extended jam over this loop of 3 chords. Check this out. phaser sound there was being provided by the MXR Phase 95, which is a great little phaser pedal. Love that thing. Now, all those chord grips are the same, just moving down the neck, right? It kind of feels like our common, C grip with that high E string added down there on the 3rd fret in the root position right here. And you're just taking that grip all the way up here to the 10th fret, if you're going off the root note, down to the 6th fret, and then down to the 3rd fret. That's going to give us a progression that goes G major, E flat major, and C major. And again, all of those grips have that ringing G string going through all of them. Now, those 3 chords, interesting thing about them is they don't even fit in any key, right? Like G major, E flat major, C major. There's not one key out there that has all 3 of those major chords in it. But the thing about it is they really all tied together by that one single note that they all share, that ringing open G. And again, if we look at the triads of those chords, right? The G triad is G, B, D. The E flat triad is E flat, G, B flat. And the C is C, E, G. G, B, D, E flat, G, B flat, C, E, G. So again, they all share that G note. And the cool thing is as he goes through those chords, you get to hear that G note in 3 different contexts, and it's the most important context, root 3rd and 5th. That's what chords are made of anyway. Over the G chord, we hear it as a root. Over the E flat, we hear it as the 3rd. And over C, we hear it as a 5th. Root, 3rd, 5th. So cool sounding. I think the perfect analogy I can use to describe what's happening right here is understanding that any single note can mean different things to different chords. It's kind of like understanding how familial relations work, right? Like to my mom, I'm a son. To my brother, I'm a brother. To my wife, I'm that asshole that leaves his socks on the floor every night. I'm the same person, but I mean something different to everybody that knows me. And that's exactly what common tones do. They tie together disparate groups of chords by having something in common in between all of them. And you know, kids, I think there's a very important life lesson to be learned there. Because I feel like us as a society, if we could all find our common tone, the thing that binds us all together, even if we all define it and understand it differently, maybe we can all finally stop the fighting, get together and build a better future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully that gives you guys some cool creative ideas that you can use in your own songwriting and things you can appreciate whenever you hear common tones being used in other people's tunes too. If you want to help support my channel, be sure to sign up today to my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. People have been calling it the greatest place on the entire internet. I'm just repeating what they're saying. Maybe you check it out and find out for yourself, so be sure to sign up today. You're going to get access to tons of bonus goodies. Also, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, all that good jazz that helps YouTubers like me out. Really is a big thing you can do to help the channel out, so please be sure to do all those things. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but it's time to get away from here and go play some music. Less clicking, more picking.